A pressure cooker is a fantastic steam-producing machine, and you can use it to steam things, like tamales and vegetables, in half or a quarter of the time that it takes on a regular stovetop. So let's make some tamales today. Today, we're going to pressure steam homemade tamales. We're going to use the granite-ware pressure canner / steamer / cooker to do it. We're going to be making two different types of tamales today. One is a vegetarian cheese, and the other one is spicy pork. That means two separate doughs and two separate fillings. All the recipes are going to be in the description. In addition to our canner cooker, we're also going to need the following ingredients. First, we need to get our corn husks ready. Put them in a large bowl or a tub or a pot and then pour hot water over them. Weight them with a plate or something heavy to keep them submerged, and then let them sit there and just soak that up so that they get nice and pliable for about an hour or so. And now we make our dough. Now you can fill tamales with just about anything as long as it's not too dry or too runny. We have two recipes, one is pork, one is vegetarian, but you can get super creative with the fillings. The dough, however, can be a little trickier, so that's what we're going to focus on today. First, we mix our masa harina with water, and we're going to let that rest for just about 15 minutes. After our masa has rested and absorbed a lot of that water you mixed in, then we can go to our mixer, and depending on what recipe we're using, we can start whipping up our pork lard or our room temperature butter. At this point, you want to mix in your salt, your baking powder, and any spices that you're mixing in. Mix until it's nice and light and fluffy in texture, usually just about a minute. Now keep the mixer going at about a medium speed while you alternately add the masa with whichever broth you're using. In this case, we've got a veggie broth and a beef broth. Keep beating the mixture for another minute or so once it's all in there, just to make sure it's all nice and fluffy. Now here's how to test your dough to make sure you've got enough air in there. Gently use a half teaspoon or a teaspoon to scoop up a little of your dough, and then drop it into a cup of very cold water. If it floats, you can be sure your tamales are going to be nice and light and tender. Then take that whole batter and throw it in the fridge for about an hour. After about an hour, take that batter out of the fridge. You've allowed all the fats in there to really get nice and solid again. So take all the corn husks out of their hot water bath and then pat them dry on a towel. You can either lay out a couple towels and just press into them, or roll them up like this. Now we're ready to assemble, so gather up your dough, your fillings, and your corn husks. Now if you're smart, you've already gathered up a friend or two to help with the assembly. The promise of fresh homemade tamales, surely enough to garner a few volunteers. How to assemble the tamales. It's helpful to have a little bowl with water to dip your hands in so they don't get too sticky. Place the tapered end of a corn husk towards you. Grab a little bit of dough and make it into a light ball in your hands. Spread the dough into a fairly even rectangle, leaving a border around the edges of the husk so the dough doesn't overflow when you press everything shut. Then take a little bit of filling and place a line of it down the middle of the dough. Grab both sides of the husk, fold one side of the masa over to the other so that they touch on the top of your filling. Now to make sure they stay together, pull back the husk quickly. If you've got too much water on the husks or on your hands, then it could just stick to the corn. We want to try to avoid that. Press all sides of the masa together so that you cannot see the filling anymore. Then wrap one side of your corn husk over your masa, fold up the tapered end, and tie everything together. You can either use a piece of string, or you can take one of your corn husks, there's always going to be some damaged ones or some that are too small, and tear them into strips. Hopefully those strips are pliable enough that you can use them to tie a little knot. Now once all the tamales are assembled, we are ready to pressure steam them. This is going to save a ton of time. Without pressure, tamales often take an hour and a half or more to steam, and this is going to take a third of the time. First, add 3 quarts of water to your pot so that the water is just under where the steamer rack sits. We don't want our tamales sitting in any of the water. Then place the steamer rack into your pressure steamer and place the finished tamales folded side down, open side up, onto the rack. If you lay them flat or horizontal, then some of that fat or filling is going to dribble out and into the water and you won't eat it, and that's a shame. Next, place the lid on the pressure cooker by lining up the arrows on the lid with the arrows on the handle, and turn the lid until the handles line up. Put the filled cooker on the stove, and using a relatively high heat heat up the canner. Now remember, we do not have the pressure regulator blocking the vent pipe yet. We're going to heat it on high until a steady stream of steam starts flowing freely from the vent pipe. You want to exhaust all the air from the canner for 10 minutes. Then reduce the heat a bit and place the pressure regulator with 2 weights on it carefully over the vent pipe. This is going to create an environment of 15 pounds per square inch inside this cooker. We'll set a timer once our regulator has started rocking gently. As soon as it starts rocking, adjust your temperature a little bit so that it's not going too fast and that it's not stopping and starting a bunch. And then we're ready to start our timer. Our tamales need to cook for just 20 minutes. That's significantly less than the hour and a half or so that you'd usually be steaming them in a regular pot. After 20 minutes, that is our signal to turn off the heat and then let the pressure cooker just sit there to release its pressure naturally. Once the pressure is released, usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes, you can remove the pressure regulator. It's hot, so be careful. Then we can take the lid off of our tamales carefully. Remember, when taking off the canner, tip the lid away from you so that the steam doesn't scald you. And those are some hot tamales, if I don't say so myself. And I do. And now you can open them up, enjoy them with a bunch of people or all by yourself. But you can also take these tamales, seal them in bags, and throw them in the freezer for a later date. Next time you want to heat them up, just throw them into a regular steamer for about 10 to 15 minutes straight out of the freezer, and they'll be great. That is it for now, folks. So look for more videos from Graniteware on how to use this same thing as a pressure canner. And also go check out the Mason Jar Suite for other recipes and tips on canning and food preserving. Thank you so much for watching, and I bid you happy tamaleing.